Hello guys, welcome to the Concepts of Medical, and today's video we're going to talk about very important topic which is actually the bone. So we will talk about its anatomy, that what is the anatomy of the bone and what is its structures. All these things we will cover actually. And the bone we will cover bone we will cover it in many parts. First we will talk about its definition, right, and then we will talk about its composition, right, that what it is composed of, what is its constitutions, what is its parts, right. So and a third we will discuss its general structure, that what is its general structure, right. And in fourth part we will discuss its classification, right. And classification is very important, and we will discuss classification on different bases, on the basis of shape, compositions, and many classifications are there. So we will discuss it later in later videos. And the last we will discuss its role or function of bone, right. So we will cover bone in all these 3 points, in all these 5 points, right. So let's start the video. So first we will talk about its definition, that what is exactly bone is, right. So bone is actually highly mineralized and vascularized tissue, right. So bone is mineralized and vascularized connective tissue, right. So bone is it means that within the bones we have a lot of minerals and we have a lot of vessels. So bone is actually highly mineralized and highly vascularized connective tissue. So this is a very simple definition of the bones, and it can also capable, it is actually the living tissue which is capable of changing its structures when subjected to stress. Like other connective tissue, bone consists of the cell, fibers, matrix. So we will all discuss it and its composition. So let's move on to its compositions. What is actually the composition of the bone, right. So actually bone is composed of three parts, or three substances, or three materials, right. So the first here we have is the cells. Within the bone we have actually these three parts, and these three parts collectively make our bone, right. And the second is minerals, right. And the third one is its matrix of the bone, right. So actually every tissue has their own type of cells. As such, bone has also a separate and specific cells, which is actually called, and it is actually three types of cells we have in the bone. We have actually three types of cells. So cells of the bone. So now we will talk about the cell of the bone, that how many cells do we have in the cells. So actually we have three types of, basically we have three types of bone, and three types of cells in the bone. The first cell is called osteoblast, right. And the second cell is osteocyte, and the third one cell is actually osteoclast. So these three types of cells are making our bone. So these three types of cells are actually present within our bone, and with the connection of minerals and matrix, minerals are actually present in our matrix, also cells are present within our matrix, so they collectively form our bone, right? So what are actually these cells? So we will discuss, right, these cells, that what type of cells are these and what is its function, right? So the first cells here we have is the osteoblast. Osteoblasts are actually those type of cells within our bone which is already always busy in the synthesis of the matrix of our bone, right? So you get it. So what is the matrix? We will discuss it later, but actually osteoblast has a major role in the synthesis of this matrix, that what are material, what products are present in our matrix, so they are mostly synthesized by our this osteoblast cells. So they are busy in the synthesis of bone matrix, right? Matrix, synthesis of matrix of bone. So what it actually synthesized, e.g., for example, they actually synthesize the collagen, which is the part of our matrix. Collagen, actually collagen fibers, right? And the second, they also synthesize proteins, these cells, right? And the third, they also synthesize carbohydrates, right? And also synthesize proteoglycan. So these were just an example of our matrix. So these are all these things are actually present in our matrix. So we will discuss matrix later on, but now you just trust me that this particular cell, which is called osteoblast, they are actually play a major role in the synthesis of what? In the synthesis of matrix of our bone, right? So let's move on to the second one cell, which is actually called osteocytes. So there is no big difference between these two cells. Osteocytes were once called osteoblast when it was active, but when it become functionless, this osteoblast, when it become functionless and it does not capable of producing and synthesize of these matrix, so then these cells are actually called osteocytes, right? You get it, you get my point. So osteocytes are actually osteoblasts, but when the osteoblast become functionless, it is then called osteocytes. They just at that time they just play a role in the protection of our bones, right? So when osteoblast become functionless, then they are called osteocytes, right? So these are actually the definitions of our these two types of cell, osteoblast and osteocyte. So when osteoblast is the has a major role of synthesizing the matrix of the bone, and when it becomes functionless and it is not capable of producing and synthesizing all these things, then it called osteocytes. And at this time they just play a role in the protection of our bone, right? So the third one type is actually osteoclast. So osteoclast is actually the immune cell of our bone. Immune cell, what does it mean? It means they actually play a major role in the immunity of our bone. Immune cell of the bone, right? And it has one more function as well. What is its function? It is actually the minerals which is present in our bones. They are actually controlled by this type of cells when there is any deficiency in other tissues like in the blood. So the minerals are actually transferred from our bone by this type of cell, right? So this cell actually play a role. Osteoclast also give minerals of their own to the blood when there is deficiency by its activation. So it also give their mineral to the blood when there is deficiency, right? So these are actually three types of cells in the bone, which we have discussed right now. That one is osteoblast, osteocytes, and osteoclast. So these cells play a major role in our bone. So let's move on to the second point, which is actually minerals. So what is minerals, right? Second point we will discuss now is the minerals. So what type of minerals are actually present within our bone? So minerals are of the bones are present in the chemical form called hydroxyapatite, right? In the bone, minerals are present in chemical form called hydroxyapatite, right? So this is actually the chemical name of our minerals which is present in the bone. So what is actually hydroxyapatite? Hydroxyapatite is actually the inorganic substance or inorganic minerals or inorganic source of in the blood, which actually form 65% of the bone mass. So it actually forms 65% bone mass, right? And it is insoluble salt of calcium and phosphorus, right? So it mainly composed of calcium and phosphorus, and in a little amount of it is also magnesium and other substances are also present in the minerals, but it mostly it is composed of the calcium. So what is its chemical formula? So the chemical formula for the hydroxyapatite is actually all highlighted. So for the chemical formula for hydroxyapatite is actually calcium 10, phosphorus 4, whole 6, and OH whole 2. So this is actually the chemical formula for hydroxyapatite, right? So this was all about the minerals, and now we will move on to the third one term, which is the matrix. So what is exactly the matrix, right? Matrix also make the more mass up or bone, and it is actually made up of organic and inorganic form. So what is the organic? The organic part of matrix is actually in collagen and ground substances, right? So collagen and ground substances, and inorganic is actually that minerals which is called hydroxyapatite. So inorganic is actually the mineral which is present in the matrix called hydroxyapatite, right? So hydroxyapatite is actually inorganic, and collagens, fibers, and ground substances are also organic, and these two are actually make our matrix. So what substances are actually present in the matrix, right? So the first one here we have is the collagen fibers type 1, right? So type 1 is actually more present in our matrix, and the second one is the GAGs. So what is GAGs? GAGs is actually glycoamines glycans. Glycoamines glycan, and the third one here is proteoglycan. This is also, I've told you here in this, that osteoblasts are actually synthesized proteoglycans and all these. So all these substances are actually synthesized by the osteoblast cell of the bone, right? So another is the growth factor, and the last one is the cytokines. So this is actually mostly, there are more as well, but we have just mentioned these 5, that these are actually the matrix. So matrix is actually form more mass up or bone, which is consist of the organic and inorganic are actually hydroxyapatite, and hydroxyapatite are also are actually the minerals of our bone which is present in the matrix, and cells are also present in our matrix. So this was a very simple chart about the bones compositions, and in the next video we will talk about its general structure and classification, and all these things we will discuss in the later on. And this was all about the bone, and this was the first video. And if you want these hands out, you can go and visit my Facebook page and Instagram and get it from there.